Hi. So I wasn't originally planning to record again, but I changed my mind. I also need to brush my teeth because the tea is making them feel weird. Anyway, um, so this is the series I actually got permission for on Discord. The the author's Discord. Yeah, they have a Discord. I will be putting it in the description of this first one, and I'll show the. Okay, well, we get daily at in our recording. Uh, okay, anyway, sorry. I'm gonna show you the Discord a little bit here. It's a very baby Discord. Boop. Window capture. Set this to Discord. Then there you go. You can see my permission statement. Then I know you were debating podficking your own fix, but I want to see your thoughts on me podficking Cat's Paws. That's the series name, okay? So the series has its own name, Cat's Paws. That's this whole series, which is this and another fic and a third fic that is still a work in progress. I will only be podficking the first two, and I will be mentioning the others, but the only reason I'm podficking the first two is because of the fact that I want to wait till the third one's finished. Also, yes, ignore my cat screaming gif. It's wonderful, isn't it? You know? Absolutely wonderful gift. Anyway, other than that, why don't we get onto the tags and stuff? Due to just how many tags are in this fic, I am only gonna read them all on the first chapter, and I'm only gonna read the summary on the first chapter too. Because here's the thing, I didn't do a tags and summary when I. Okay, well, we got tea noises. I didn't do the summary and the tags when I first did Black Cats because I honestly wanted to just do it for the simple fact that sorry, I wanted to drink my tea. Simple fact that I accidentally gotten permission for it and I felt bad. I have actually been struggling to get permission for shit, as you heard. Exogen? Sorry. I'm trying to remember how to say a word. I've been struggling to get permission. This is technically the third fic I asked for. I didn't reread the whole series because I remember the series pretty damn well, and I love it. It has so many really interesting concepts in it that it's like, okay, fair enough, you know? It's a cool fic. This author's really neat with how they write. Now, I will be putting their Discord in the description. I swear to gosh, if anyone goes and harasses them, I will hunt you down. Okay? You should only be going in there if you want to talk and or give kudos to the fic. Please. I will tell the author to kick you if you're being an asshole. I would do it myself if I could. Okay? And yeah, I like this fic. It's one of my favorites. Sorry, I'm a nerd for cat fics, okay? And Katzawa is amazing. Okay, let me actually shut the fuck up and get on to reading the tags. Jen, what do you expect? Um, okay, Azawa Shota and Dabi, aka Todoroki Toya, the foreshadowing we all saw from 10 miles away. Azawa Shota, Eraserhead, and Toga Himiko. Azawa, I'm just gonna say Eraserhead. Save me, because there's so many tags here. This is like the most tags I've ever had to read, too. Eraserhead and Kuragiri. Eraserhead and Shigaraki. Or Shimura Tenko, whichever you want to say. Eraserhead, Kuragiri, Dabi, Toga Himiko, Shigaraki Tomura, Sakio Astura, Mr. Compress. I need to learn how to say his name. I need to say his name. League of Villains, Spinner, Magne. I am not trying with either of those names. Binge, but Guada, Jin, twice. I will figure out how to say them later, or you will hear me butcher them. Background relationships. League of Villains as a family. League of Villains shenanigans. League of Villains redemption. Leader. Sorry. I have a lot of fun saying weird things. Cat Azawa Shota. Undercover. Kind of. Hit by a quirk. My favorite tag. Alternate universe. Post USJ. Accidental kidnapping. Mistaken identity. I cannot stress enough that Azawa gets turned into a cat. Enemies to friends. Friends to enemies to friends. Enemy to parent. Enemy to adopted child. Shoulda. Eraserhead has an adopting problem. I think we all knew this by how many fics there are with him adopting people, but I love the fact it's a tag. Anyway, Eraserhead adopts everyone. Eraserhead adopts the League of Villains. There are 3 adoption tags in a row. Dobby is a Todoroki. This fic was not written before the whole reveal, but it's still mentioned. Kurogiri is Shirokuma Oboro. Good parent Kurogiri. Parental Azawa Shota. Married Azawa Shota. It's a Eraserhead and President Mike. The ship I don't give 2 flying shits about if I read. Canon typical violence. Eraserhead has feelings. Eraserhead has PTSD. Badass motherfucker Shota Azawa Shota. If you were ever curious what BAMF means, it means badass motherfucker. I learned that completely randomly. I think a lot of people mistake that tag for a different kind of tag. Which is, so you get to see it in things, like things it's not supposed to be in. This is similar to the identity port tag, which gets misused a lot. I actually had the wrong definition of that tag for a while until I looked it up, and I was like, oh, okay. I guess many people have been using this tag wrong. We love that. Anyway, competent Eraserhead. Eraserhead centric. This fic is from Eraserhead's POV. Um, established Azawa Shota and present Mike. Background, like seriously, background Azawa and Mike. Minor Azawa and Mike. Quirkless people have the extra toe joints, custom sneakers, red shoe theory. False negative, Azawa Shota. Eraserhead. Uh, oh, okay. Protective, Azawa Shota, Eraserhead. Eraserhead is so done. Eraserhead is a good teacher. Tired Azawa Shota. Quirk theory. They actually do get into quirk theory a lot in here, and I nerd out over it. World building. Hikashi Kenji. This is Magne's name. I gotta figure out how to say it. Magne lives! Explanation point, explanation point, explanation point. I love that it's like the explanation points are their own tag. Magician Sako Achidori. Mr. Capress. I fucking can't say names. Parental Kurogiri. Here we go with Kurogiri again. Sweet Toga Himiko. Toga Himiko redemption. Toga Himiko is a good friend. Older sibling Magne. I'm not even saying the name. Trans Magne. Understandable. That's common. Magne is a good friend. Spinner is a nerd. Spinner plays video games. Twice is a good friend. League of Villains centric. Complete. And it's also translated in Russian. So if you can read Russian, you can go to the fic and find the Russian translation. I don't know if the second part of the series is translated to Russian, but I know this one is. There's technically like a one shot that's like kind of connected to this, too. I don't know if I'm going to read that, but we'll find out. I borrowed a cat's paws by CrouchingTiger28. Summary. There were a lot of exclamations as he passed, shouts of "kitty" or gasps of "cute," but nobody tried to stop him. He was making good progress towards the police station. He was about 98% sure that despite his size and messed up vision, he was still on the right track. And soon this whole fiasco would be over. And then, of course, everything went wrong. Or Azawa gets turned into a cat. That's the only good part of his day. I'm excited to read this. I will be doing the chapter art thing where I do a unique chapter art for every chapter. I am actually going to send the chapter art into the Discord of them. Mainly because, surprise, motherfuckers, I'm starting. You know? It's such a nice little Discord. They're nice people. There's only like 7, 8, 9, 9 people in there. So yeah, friendly little bunch. Author's nice as hell too. Anyway, I'm gonna get on to it since I've been rambling for 11 fucking minutes. Anyway, here we go. Shoulda had, in the past, had worse days. The USJ came to mind, and the first year training camp of his most recent batch of problem children. A mission he'd gone on early in his hero career that ended with him getting kidnapped and tortured for a few hours. The day Obro died. Despite everything that had happened to him, he never had a day as peculiar of day be this peculiar sort of bad. Shota was used to strange quirk backfires. He was called in a lot to help panicking children with dangerous quirks. That had just developed. Since Eraser could easily deal with pretty much anything, Shota had been de-aged, turned to stone, stuck in a time loop, and on one memorable location, turned to solid forensic pink for a day. Even the body swap he had to deal with for a few years ago didn't hold a candle to this. On the one hand, the transformation had happened overnight. Shota had experience with quirks that changed someone's physical form, and it was rarely pleasant to be transformed. On the other hand, well, everything else. Not only had his dream been a haunting mixture of terrifying memories, but he'd woken up practically drowning in his blanket, had a minor claustrophobia-induced panic attack, and then squirmed out into the light to find that he was about 10th the size he was supposed to be. Everything smelled far too strongly. His limbs weren't built like he was used to, and he could hardly see anything. Just getting down from his futon was a nerve-wracking endeavor that almost ended up with him kissing the floorboards. Apparently, his new form came with some built-in instincts, though, since he managed to land on his feet with pretty much no conscious input from the human parts of his brain, after a bit of an argument with his own instincts, walking on 4 legs was not at all like crawling as a human. Shota managed to make it to the full-length mirror in Hazashi's closet. His suspicions were proven correct, and for a minute all Shota could do was stare. A cat. He was a cat. In any other circumstances, he would be thrilled. He was a cat! Last year, when he spelled his entire class, he would have accepted the changed form with delight. A cat! Except it was not last year. It was today. And today he was supposed to be preparing his students for the upcoming provisional licensing exam. Instead, he was a cat. At the very least, he was a good-looking cat. He had long fur, black all over, with a few thinner, rougher patches over the places Shota knew he had some of his worst scars. His eyes were very strange. And for a moment, Shota thought he didn't have any in this form. They were there, but they were unnaturally dark. And further inspection revealed they were almost solid black, his pupils blending into his irises. And that was normal for him, but it looked bizarre in a cat. Like he had no eyes at all. His tail was also unusual, but only in that it was very long for his size. Exactly how long, Shota couldn't tell, since it was constantly moving, no matter how hard he tried to keep it still. Shota sighed, finally giving up on getting his tail to hold still. His head drooped, and in the mirror his reflection flattened its ears to the side. He had a few options here, and none of them would be fun. He could try to track down the kid whose quirk had affected him like this, though that would be pretty tricky in this tiny form. He could head for UA in hopes that either Nezu or Koda could understand him in this form, but UA was clear on the other side of the city, and it would be a risky trek for a house cat to make solo. Even a house cat with human intelligence and Shota's knowledge of rooftops, subway lines, and shortcuts. He could also hang around and wait for Zashi to return and hopefully recognize that Shota was no ordinary cat. The last, while the most tempting, was the least likely to succeed, and pretty risky if it failed. Shota had a tendency to bring home strays he found, and he was always bringing home some feline or another. If Hizashi found him like this, he would probably assume Shota had brought the unknown black cat home and would take him to the shelter. Just what Shota didn't need. So he either had to find his way clear across the city in his pint-sized form, or he had to somehow track down one of the dozens kids with the unstable or mystery quirks he had met yesterday. Shota sighed again, turning away from the mirror with a slash of his tail. Fortunately, the bedroom door was hanging slightly ajar, and with a bit of careful batting at it, Shota managed to pull it open, enough to slip through, his laptop still on the floor, propped up against the couch where he had left it the night before. Shota stared at it for a moment, just now realizing the sheer scope of the conundrum he was in. Could he even open a laptop in this form? After a lot of struggling, several scratches on the plastic casing, and accidentally dropping the thing on his paw, he managed to wedge his bottom teeth into the gap between the screen and the keyboard and lever the thing open a few centimeters. Once it was wedged open, he could stand behind it and hook his paw around the screen and pulled it the rest of the way open like that, and circled around to sit in front of it again. If just opening his laptop had been such a struggle, did he even want to try leaving his house? Well, if the other option was getting delivered to a shelter to be neutered, with renewed determination, Shota carefully input his password. His paws were just the wrong size to press just one key, and it took him 4 tries to put it in correctly. And to do it, he had to carefully tilt his paw so only one tip of one toe was touching the key. Unfortunately, his toe beans worked. Fortunately, his toe beans worked on the trackpad. And doubly fortunately, the files from the night before were still up on screen. It took far longer than it should have to sort through the files, especially since he couldn't press any more than one key at a time. By the time he was done, Shota's paw ached with the unusual strain. His eyes hurt from the light of the screen, and it was well past the time he should have been terrifying his students into training. But he'd found the file he was looking for. A Mashu, uh, Omoshuru Henshin quirk, soul form. There wasn't a lot of information on his quirk. Of course there wasn't. They'd come to Shota after all. But it was definitely a transformation quirk of some kind. Should have been called in because anyone who got anywhere near the kid turned into an animal. It had ended up being a one-off style emitter. Once they were transformed, only Omnisher could remove the transformation. His dad had a powerful empathy quirk and that was only a few steps shy of mind reading. And his mom could imbue herself and others with a huge variety of traits. Anything from calmness to essentially being made of rubber. Once Shota had learned that, he tracked down the kid's mom, who ended up in a tree in the form of a parrot, and coaxed her back into proper mind. She promptly winged her way back to her son, settling a calm aura over the whole gear, and nearly wrapped up the whole problem. Unfortunately, nobody had figured out why the people around Oshemers were getting caught in his quirk. They hadn't touched him, and he hadn't even looked at half of them. There, they were at one moment human, and the next running around as a raccoon dog, or swan, or in one case, a bear. There was definitely no reason for Shota, over 12 hours later, to only now be a cat, but Osher's was the only file he tangibly related to animal transformation. And it wasn't like Shota spent a lot of free time with kids who hadn't gotten a handle on their quirk. Once again, Shota was faced with an exhausting decision. Try to make it to UA or track down Omo Shiryu. UA would be easier. After so long attending and then teaching there, Shota could get to UA campus from anywhere in the city blindfolded. But finding Oshimaru had a much higher probability of getting immediate help. On the other hand, he could only get that help if he ever made it to Omo Yushiro. With a heavy sigh, Shota cast a glance around the house, looking for anything he should bother to take with him, or any excuse that he could postpone his leaving time. All he found was the empty cat tree standing in the corner of the room, where where were his own cats? There was a few cents with the cat brain that came with the physical form had filed under other friendly cat smells. But Shota hadn't actually seen either of his cats. Bakugowa, a name which had initially been Little Bastard, but had developed in the past few months, was usually lying directly on top of Shota's chest when he woke up. Shota had been so startled by this unexpected physical transformation, he hadn't even noticed the cat's absence. Sloppy work on his part. That was definitely the sort of thing he'd scold his students for. Shota lifted his head, and for the first time since he turned into a cat, he tried to say something. His call of hello came out as a loud mew. Shota paused, startled by his own feline voice. He sounded like a cat, which, of course, he was a cat, but it was still surprising. He could mimic a cat call pretty well. Not that he was ever admitting to that to literally anyone, but it was still weird. He sounded like a cat. Bakugawa? Shota tried, and another loud meow came from his mouth. Meow! After a short pause, there was an answering mew. It didn't sound like words, thank goodness, but it was undoubtedly Bakuwa's. Oh, thank Kami you're here. I thought you had left me forever. Yowl that she greeted them with whenever they'd gone for more than, about 10 minutes. Bakugawa, like her namesake, never did anything slowly or quietly. This included, but was not limited to, eating, sleeping, snuggling, and running across the house to greet her owner, who had been inexplicably turned into a cat. Caterwauling the whole way, Bakuwa shot out of the linen closet, bounded down the hallway, bolted across the living room, and slammed into Shota like a furry orange battering ram. It was a lot cuter, Shota realized as he tried to catch his breath when she was 10th his size. Bakuwa was frantically licking his face, making frantic cheeping noises all the while. What are you doing? Shota demanded flatly. Why are you doing this? Bakuwa made even more frantic cheeping noises, her rough tongue pulling at the fur on Shota's ears. That was a bizarre feeling, and Shota quickly extracted himself from her hold, ignoring the mournful mew as he backed away. Meow! Where's Missy? Shota tried to ask. It came out as a curious chirp. Bakua wailed a worried "Mwah!" and tried to lick Shota's face again. Shota sighed and found that his tail was twitching with irritation. Or maybe that was a form of stress. He wasn't sure. Fortunately, Shota didn't have to go looking for Missy. As he appeared from around the edge of the archway with a disgruntled look, Missy opened his mouth in a yawn and held it there. Shota stared at him for a moment with his messed up cat vision. It took him several seconds to see the bright light building up in Missy's throat. And by then, it was almost too late. Very few shelters would willingly take in animals with quirks, especially potentially dangerous or destructive quirks. Both Missy and Bakuwa, had ended up in Shota and Azashi's care after being rejected by a shelter. Bakuwa's quirk factor was damaged in some attack that damaged her hearing, so she rarely used it. But Missy was incredibly territorial and prone to shooting at anyone or anything that upset him. Even without thinking about it, Shota activated Erasure. He wasn't really expecting anything in particular. He was more focused on making sure Missy didn't disintegrate him. If he had the time to think about it, he probably would have expected all his fur somewhere to poof up, or maybe just the fur on his head. Instead, his back arched and his hackles stood up, fur bristling over his shoulders and his spine, and even his tail foofing up like a pine cone. The light in Misty's throat died, and he shut his mouth with a satisfied Shota's eyes didn't hurt. He had activated Erasure pretty much right after waking up, without his eye drops or anything, and his eyes didn't hurt. Erasure was still activated, and his eyes didn't even feel strained. Had Shota blinked once this morning? For the first time since he could remember, Shota deactivated Erasure without blinking, just turned it off. Its fur laid back down, and its tail settled, swaying thoughtfully. Cats blinked. Shota knew that cats could blink. He had seen cats blink before, and Slow blinked back at them. He was pretty sure cats didn't need to blink nearly as often as humans did, though. Which meant Erasure was a lot more powerful in this form. Hopefully, that would be enough to get Shota safely to either UA or the Ashamuryu residence. UA, he decided, was the right call. He knew the route better, and he suspected being in this form, with weird eyesight, a huge difference in perspective, and a much stronger sense of smell would definitely make everything way harder than it should be. I'm leaving, Shota said aloud, mostly to convince himself. Definitely leaving. Misty grumbled, sliding forward to set a paw on Shota's forehead. What? Shota demanded. Hissy murped at him, turning to press his side against Shota's. I need to go, Misty. Bakugo chose then to join in, plastering herself to Shota's other side. Since Bakugo was a lanky giant of a cat, and Misty was a short-legged scroochum, it didn't go super well. Guys, Shota growled as Bakugo almost tripped them both over. He squirmed, trying to wriggle out from between the two of them. But Bakugo slumped directly on top of Shota, practically crushing him under her weight. Shota knew animals with quirks tended to be smarter than usual, even without a quirk like high spec. Maybe Bakugo and Misty knew something Shota didn't. Since they were all cats with the same observation abilities, Shota didn't think of any way they could. Misty had seemed far more cuddly than was his usual on the morning of the USJ attack, and Bakugo had been the first to tip them off in their old apartment when the upstairs neighbors had started melting the floor. She hadn't even been able to hear the tiny cracking sound of wood panels slowly turning to liquid, but she'd known it was happening before either of the humans in the apartment. Shota sighed, letting his paws slide out from underneath him. Bakugo made a triumphant noise, and Misty appeared by Shota's head to lick his face a few times. He had been captured by a pair of cats. He couldn't even understand what they were saying. Could Officer Sansa understand Shota if he tried to talk to him in this form? The police station was much closer than either UA or the Asumuro residence. Easier to find, too. Should have propped himself up on his elbows, shaking Misty off of him. With a bit of wiggling and digging his claws into the carpet, he managed to pull himself out from underneath Bakugo, who slumped to the ground with a mournful mew. Meow. Instantly, Misty was on him, jaw locked and light building in his throat. Shota cancelled his quirk for a split second, resetting his build-up time, and then bolted for the front door. It was a difference that Shota hadn't noticed as a human, but Misty was a lot slower than other cats. His short munchkin legs were no match for Shota's stride. Bakuowa would have been, but she was busy drooling sadly on the floor, so Shota made it to the cat door before either of them caught up to him. The cat door itself almost tripped him up, but Shota relied on the cat brain instinct and barely even stumbled as he shot through the swinging gate and out onto the sidewalk. It was later than he expected, the sun already high in the sky and beastly hot. The pavement burned on his paw pads, though not to the extent Shota would have expected if he were walking around barefoot in his usual form. It wasn't actually as terrible as he thought it should be. For some reason, he felt cooler in the black fur coat than he would have expected. Did he get a strange urge to start grooming himself? Which he was chalking up to unexplicted feline instincts. The bus stop was only a few streets down, and Shota was glad that he had picked the police station instead of either of his other potential destinations. Just walking those 3 blocks took forever. And crossing the street was one of the most nerve-wracking things he'd ever done. At least it was daytime, and he wasn't a black cat on the black road in the middle of the night. While he waited for the bus, Shota practiced jumping up onto and back off the bench at the bus stop. He found after much trial and error that it came down to letting the cat instincts take over. If he thought about it too hard, he would inevitably trip over himself and either not get enough height to land on the bench or fail to keep his feet under him when he landed. Unfortunately, he found out a bit later that if he leaned on his cat instincts too much, he'd end up grooming himself, which was certainly an experience. Shota paused, his tongue still sticking out of his mouth, as he realized what he was doing. Maybe he should try and figure out how to jump properly without the cat brain getting involved. That ended in several more bruises. But Shota managed to judge the distance and the strength required to get onto the bench, the ledge, around the bus stop, and the edge of the plant pots on either side. He then promptly fell off said ledge about a dozen times. And by the time the bus finally came, Shota was even more tired than usual, and sore all over. But he did manage to get up the stairs first try. Several people glanced at him curiously, but no one gave him a second thought, except for a middle-aged woman with curious gold eyes. She caught the attention of the little girl sitting next to her, the same choppy pink hair, so likely her daughter. It pointed at Shota, murmuring something sounded like good luck. Shota had almost forgotten that solid black cats were good luck. At least he wasn't in one of those places where bad black cats were bad luck. The last thing he wanted was someone coming after him for being cursed or whatever. He had enough problems already. Thanks. What's it doing here? The little girl asked. Looking for help, the mother answered. It showed his attention snapped back to her. How could she possibly know? That was a stupid question in this day and age. There was one easy answer. Her quirk told her somehow. Not ours? The little girl asked. No, it doesn't need our help, the mother laughed. What do you see? The other people are looking for it. Other people are looking for it, the little girl said confidently. People that care about it. Well, there you go. Mother said, clearly approving. It'll find its owners again, I'm sure. Okay, the little girl agreed. The fur on Shota's spine prickled. He looked away from the two knowing golden eyes. A quirk like that was subtly powerful, terrifying in the wrong hands, but equally incredible in the right person. Shota bruised himself with trying to read the destination display at the front of the bus. It was much more difficult with his feline eyes, as everything looked about the same color, but he was pretty sure he knew where he was going. Since it was around the middle of the day, the bus was mostly empty. The gold-eyed woman seemed relatively sympathetic, or at least unlikely to intentionally harm what she perceived as a lucky animal. Shota jumped onto the seat next to her, only scrambling a bit as he just slightly misjudged the strength of the jump to get up to it, then settled instinctively into an easy loaf. One paw stuck out to dangle over the edge of the seat, and Shota rested his head on his foreleg and drifted into a vague half sleep. He found that he could close his eyes, though it didn't feel like closing his eyes as a human. Not that he really cared. When it was he was exhausted and sleeping with his usual transit activity anyway. After almost 20 minutes of dozing, Shota was roused by finger tapping at his spine. He snapped at it automatically and almost fell off the seat as he twisted around to reach the intruding figure. Your stop is coming up, the gold-eyed woman said crisply, and Shota stared at her for a moment. Was she talking to a cat? Yes, I'm talking to you, the woman said. No ordinary cat has goals like get off the bus at this specific stop or make it to the police station to talk to this officer. I don't care about what your quirk is, but I suspect you could understand us the second you stepped onto the bus. Thanks, Shota admitted begrudgingly. He knew she wouldn't understand him, but maybe he could get his point across. His stop was coming up anyway, and he could immediately run away from the social interaction that was somehow even more awkward as a cat. He did just that, leaping down the stairs as easily as he gone up them. Then he ran face first into his next issue. The bus stop by his house was mostly abandoned at this time of day. It was a residential area only, full of endless neighborhoods of tiny homes. The bus stop nearest to the police station was in the middle of the city, and the lunch rush was in full swing. The sidewalks were swarmed with people, each one easily 6 times Shota's height, and none of them looking down. With all of the people around, it would be a miracle if Shota made it to the police station without getting stepped on, kicked, run over by a car or bicycle, or even intentionally attacked for fun. He'd seen some pretty terrible things people were willing to do to animals, and he wasn't eager to experience it himself. Shota took a deep breath and started down the sidewalk. His cat eyes, he discovered, were designed to see movement. Everything was mostly the same color. He could still easily tell where people were and what was moving. It was like more naturally, more the attentive vision that came with his quirk dialed up to 11. With the help of his whiskers and his ears swiveling in every direction, Shota found that it wasn't actually very hard to avoid the proportionally huge feet of the crowds of people hurrying down the street. There were a lot of explanations as he passed, shouts of "Kitty!" or gasps of "Cute!" But nobody tried to stop him. He was making good progress towards the police station. He was about 98% sure that, despite his size and messed up vision, he was still on the right track, and soon this whole fiasco would be over, and Shota could go back to tormenting his students into being better heroes. And then, of course, everything went wrong. You know what's funny? I got this. I think I mentioned this in the beginning, but I'll be honest, I've been recording this for a little bit. So I don't remember. But I got permission for this and just started fucking recording it. I'm only recording one episode at most a day because these episodes are chunky. Like chapters are chunky. There's 100,000 words in this fic, and 30 chapters. You can do the quick math there to understand how many words per chapter. But yeah, like I said at the beginning, I'm only reading the tags for the first chapter. Oh my god, it took me so long to do that like intro thing. Anyway, I'm gonna end it here. Do check my posts because I do try talk in there a little bit, and I'm still looking for a fourth fic for a series. If you have any fic suggestions that you want me to read over and see if I want a podfic and go ask for them, please send them into the post in my post. There's a post that's labeled fic recommendations. Please go put them there. It's easier than hunting them down inside of other things. Now, bye! Doubly fortunate, doubly, fuck, okay.